Welcome, welcome. Very, very special that all of you joined here today, both who are joining in person and also on Zoom, for our next class of the Torah Insights, real life Torah Insights. I had a discussion in the car with Mendy this morning. I asked him, we have a long way to go every day this morning. So I asked him, when I say you, what do I mean? She says, what do you mean? Me! So he says, what's you? What is you? What does it mean, you? So he said, he pointed, me. So he says, what do you mean? That's your body. He pointed to your stomach, his foot. That's your body. But what is you? And what came out was, what was him, I meant his neshama, his soul. And that is in essence, when we think about what is you, when we think about who is you, what is the person, what are you all about, what is the essence of who you are, that is what your neshama is. That is who you are. Your body is generally, we say, is a tool for our neshama, for our soul to use in order to have an effect, to make a difference in the world, or whatever it is, whatever we want to do. So when it's important for us to take in perspective, first of all, who we are. Who we are. And keep that in mind. Once you have that in mind, you come to understand many, many different aspects of what our perspective should be, and in addition, our value system, where our value system should be located, where our value system should be focused on. We say that in this week's Torah portion, you have a mitzvah of para aduma. So if everyone opens up their parsha, their chumash, we're going to be learning Parashat Chokat. Dekel, thank you to wonderfully open it up, and there you go. Right to the place where you need to be. It says we're learning Parashat Chokat. We make the first pasuk. What do we say in Parashat Chokat? What do we say in Parashat Chokat, the first pasuk? So why don't you read, please, Dekel, if you don't mind reading in Hebrew, the first two psukim in Parashat Chokat.
מדבר השם אל משה ואל אהרון לאמור. זאת חוקת התורה שציווה השם לאמור. דבר אל בני ישראל ויקחו אליך פרה אדומה תמימה אשר אין בה מום אשר לא עלה עליה אור.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean in English? Say that to me, and maybe Dina, you want to take that?
First two verses.
Yes, first two verses.
After the rebellion of Korach, the people remained at Ritmah.
Well, maybe start from where the highlighted, the black.
God spoke. This is a quintessential.
Yes.
This is a quintessential.
No, God spoke to Moses.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
God spoke to Moses, instructing him to convey his words to Aaron, saying, "This is the quintessential rule of the Torah which God has commanded you to say to the people. It is a rule without human rationale, so do not expect it to make any sense to anyone. Speak to the Israelites and have them take for you, Moses, a totally red-haired, unblemished cow upon which no yoke was ever laid."
Okay, so which means that first of all, the Torah is telling us this is the quintessential rule of the Torah. What is the quintessential rule of the Torah? Which law are we focusing on? We're focusing on a mitzvah which is super logical, beyond logic. The mitzvah of Para aduma, which means that if you have a person who passed away, and someone else came in contact with that person, or if a person is in a room where that dead person is, there's a mitzvah, that person becomes now impure. Meaning to say that there's a spiritual impurity that enters the person who comes in contact with that dead person. And hence, in order for them to be able to go into the Beit HaMikdash, go into the temple, in order for them to be able to touch holy things, they need to go through a purification process. Now, there are other things which become impure for. There are other things which are become ritually impure for. For example, another thing which is ritually impure for, let's say someone comes in contact with a dead rodent, for example, or a dead animal. You also become ritually impure. But what? The way you rid yourself of that impurity is you immerse yourself in a mikvah. In a mikvah. We have immersed yourself in a mikvah. That brings a sense of purity. That it brings a sense of purity to that person. Another aspect of what we say is spiritual impurity is, for example, if someone ate something which came from let's say a dead animal that was not killed properly, they also become ritually impure. And therefore, then the way they purify themselves is, besides the problem is of kosher, but the way they purify themselves is by immersing themselves in a mikvah. That's why also the idea of a nida, a woman who would do the menstrual cycle, which comes ritually impure, also has a mitzvah to immerse themselves in a mikvah afterwards as well. And as well as a man who also has a certain sense of ejaculation as well, will also have the mitzvah to immerse themselves in a mikvah. Now, today, practically, we are not as careful with this. For what reason? Because we're not able to ever get fully pure. Why? Does anybody think of why?
Because the temple is open, we can't do sacrifices.
Because the temple is there, we can't do sacrifices, and therefore we can't do the paraduma, the red heifer. Which means since you are not able to do the greatest level of impurity of coming in contact with a dead person, which is that the only way to rid that impurity is by taking the ashes, which the verses will go into detail, taking the ashes of the red heifer, dipping into water, then sprinkling it onto the person who came in contact with that dead person. Since that's the only way to do it, you can immerse yourself in the mikvah 20,000 times, shite tefillas 310 times. It doesn't make a difference. You still remain impure. But once you go through that purification process of having the red heifer, the paraduma, then the person becomes pure. And then the person can once again go into the Beit HaMikdash and do everything else. Hence today, why most rabbinic authorities say one is not allowed to go on the Temple Mount. Why?
Because
we're impure. We're impure. We are all considered tamei meis. We're all considered to become in contact with someone, either ourselves or some in contact with someone who is of a dead person, or we're coming something in contact with that, and therefore all impure, and therefore we're not allowed to go onto we're not allowed to go on the Temple Mount. Now, this mitzvah of ridding ourselves from this impurity is called a chukah, a super logical mitzvah. Why is it called a super logical mitzvah? It's because it's a mitzvah which is difficult to understand. It's difficult, which is not just difficult to understand, it's beyond logic. First of all, one aspect of the mitzvah, which we'll learn a bit later, is that the person who becomes pure, or comes actually does makes the other person pure, they themselves become impure.
Oh, okay.
Which means that the person who is sprinkling the water and making the person pure, they themselves become impure. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
You're doing something to make someone else pure. You're not touching that person, so it's not because you got contaminated by that other person.
Okay.
Just because you come in contact with the thing that actually is used to make pure someone else pure, you yourself become impure.
Maybe because it's something can sprinkle back. If it's water, it might, some of the water will touch him back.
Well, that's only if it ricochets. If your person throws, generally sometimes when you throw it, whatever hits upon the person doesn't actually flow back. If you're gonna throw against the wind, then before it gets to him, it'll blow back on you, right? Yeah. But on a general basis, when you throw something onto someone else, it goes towards that person. It doesn't fall back on you after it comes in contact.
Take the dinner, for example. Some water can hit me back.
That had touched her.
Body. Yeah.
That touched her.
Sometimes, if I'm close enough to her, I'm not trying to be
No. I understand.
I'm just trying to think what might be the reason.
Right. But you do say it's very difficult to understand. You're trying to think of the possibility of what that is, which I hear. But the chance of that are quite remote, right? The chance of that quite remote. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's something that's super logical. It's something that's a little bit that's beyond logic of why of that mitzvah is. And we say zois chukas haTorah. This is the statute, the fundamental of the entire Torah, that we have to do it. That it's because it's God's statute, not because it's logical and makes sense.
The way it is.
Do it because that's what God commanded us to do. And in a certain sense, all mitzvot we should be keeping in a similar way. It's a lot of times when we think about ourselves, there's mitzvot which are logical and mitzvot which are not logical, right? That's generally we have that. But with the mitzvahs which are logical, why do we do them? Because it makes sense.
Don't kill,
don't steal, don't do all those negative things. Yeah. Those are the logical things. The reason why I'm doing it is why? Because it makes sense to me. As Karmit says very nicely, she's very into helping other people because it's so much. This isn't what the Jew is. This is what you have to do to help other people. The essence. The essence of who we are. Yeah. But on one hand, that's the only way we do it. What this mitzvah, the pasuk is telling us, zos chukata Torah. This is the chukah of the entire Torah. It means to tell us that in a way, the entire Torah, then every mitzvah, all of the 613 mitzvot are like a chukah, are like this statute. Now, the reason why we should do it is not because it makes sense to us, and therefore that's why we're fulfilling the mitzvah not to kill. But just like we fulfill a mitzvah of not to do the red heifer, which is logical, and we only do it because Hashem asked us to do it, so too, hello. So too, take a chair. So too, we are also doing the mitzvah of all the mitzvahs of the Torah, all the other mitzvahs of the Torah, for the reason of not that Hashem did it. Hashem commanded us. Yeah. There is no other logic behind that. Is we're doing it because that is the command of what Hashem wants us to do. So it's an important aspect, a perspective of how to look, of how when we do a mitzvah, is what we do. Welcome, Yankee. Thank you. Now, that's one aspect that we say is why the mitzvahs in general are in a way compared to this idea of the chukah. Another aspect of why we call the entire Torah Chukah, in the way of that term of Chukah, is because the term Chukah on one hand means statute, a mitzvah which is super logical, but on the other hand also comes from the same term of Chakika, to engrave.
You cannot change it. It's like the American, for the Institute of American. It's not just, it's fundamental. It's something very serious. It's not like, oh yeah, let's change. We don't like it. Let's change it.
So you're saying it's engraved. It's something
Absolutely,
really part.
yeah.
But why are you saying that you can change it? Why is that? Yes.
Does it
Matthew.
ties in because something you said at Shabbat a few weeks ago that I forget which parasha, and it's this commentary that the Rebbe said that it's engraved in us. It should be engraved in us, and there was a story that you gave, and that it's not just something that's very deep. Oh yes, it was the Ten Commandments, how they were
engraved into the stone.
Thank you. It was like intrinsic. There was no way of
Literally engraved.
dividing them.
Very good. Very, very good, Kathy. So the idea of another aspect of Chukah, which is connected a little bit to what you're saying, is that the Torah and mitzvahs are not something which is something an addition to us. It's not something which is something added to us and that we actually have to do. But rather it's something that's engraved with us. When you engrave something, the letters are not something written upon. For example, like here you had a piece of white paper and then you put it through a printer and then the ink bound to the paper, and now it's two separate things that were bound together, right? So you have ink, paper, bam! You have that, they connected as one, right? That's one thing. When you engrave something, it's not two separate things, but rather it's the same thing. The words which exist are part of it. So that the idea that the Torah, all the idea of the Torah and the mitzvot are not just two separate things which are in addition to our existence, but a part of our existence, are part of our identity, a part of who we are, the essence of who we are. And therefore, just like you can't run away from yourself, we can't run away from Torah mitzvahs. It's part of who we are. We can't run away from our own identity. You cannot run away from yourself. And I can't even remember that I mentioned the story of Rabbi Yosef Weinberg, who was one time he was visiting different cities, and someone asked him, "What do you do?" And he said that it used to be back in the day that the local town, sort of like Greenwich and the Docklands, we can't afford our own sofer. We can't afford our own sofer to live here permanently. We don't have enough business. We still have to get our own Sefer Torah. Not just that, right? But if you have a place like Stamford Hill, right? A place like Stamford Hill, over there you have many Sefer. So he says the way we'll do is, in order to make sure all the towns who had small towns are able to, there's all their mezuzahs and tefillin and everything was kosher. So used to people would go from town, Sofer would go from town to town, and then everyone at that time they would say that this day the Sofer was coming. They would gather all their stuff, and that day the Sofer would work for the whole day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it was. Then they would correct and fix and write whatever needed to be written.
I can add what mitzvot they have as part of us. I'm as a non-religious Jew. Of course, the things I do believe, but the mitzvot, I know when I do something which I know is not right, I know that I'm doing wrong. I know it's part. I know it should be done, but I don't do it. So compared to completely non-religious Jews, they speak with themselves and say, "Oh, don't want to use the word rubbish, or it's terrible to use, but we don't believe in it." But where I'm coming from, I know it's part, I know it is, but I don't do it for this or that reason. But it is. I totally agree. Again, as a strictly religious Jew, that it is part. It is most definitely.
Right.
I can definitely see that as a part. Yes.
So amazing, and I would say it's not, it's on one hand, it's for you, that it's a part of you. It's a part of every single Jew,
Absolutely.
Whether they are
I know.
they're in touch with that or not.
That's
you
what
have
I
to
see
know.
sometimes. Jewish chefs on television cooking pork. How dare you? How? You're Jewish. How do you do that? You know,
Yeah.
it's not
Because
a
it's
choice.
a-
You're
it's a-
Jewish, you're not supposed to do it,
Yeah.
even if you believe it or not. It's like you're Jew, you're religious or
It's
you're
funny,
Jew.
but you
It's
should
like-
know.
it's
I
like
don't want to
it's
I don't want to
engraved.
detract.
It's
We're
engraved
still in the middle of a story,
It's engraved.
but it's interesting enough that. Okay, to this.
No, it's
I was
fine.
no. What I was going to say is technically, cooking pork is not problematic.
All right,
No.
okay.
Technically, there's an issue.
That's something that
There's an issue with there's a concept
We're eating
rabbinically. There's a
after.
concept rabbinically. It says if you're going to start cooking non-kosher food, it's very likely you're going to taste it.
Taste it.
Very likely you're going to taste it. But
But it's
in,
not a-
biblically, in theory, cooking pork as opposed to cooking a cheeseburger, that's biblically forbidden. So this is putting to work
Why?
in.
Why? What's
Do you
the
not? Because
Because
you're not
you
just
don't
not
mix milk
supposed
and
to
meat?
eat mixed milk and meat
because you
regards
mix-
to
yes, you
with
mix
regard
milk and
to
meat.
actually mixing
Yeah.
milk and meat
Yeah,
together.
No,
I
you
understand.
can't.
but
What?
no, that's of course.
It wasn't just
That's
eating.
of course.
It's not eating, not cooking, and have any benefits.
It's engraved.
Everybody
You
from
see
yeah.
that? I can't even look at it.
Yeah.
So if you want to go into the cheeseburger business, it's not a good business.
Forget about it. But pork, aren't you supposed but you cook it
But
as long
as
you
I
don't
said, I
touch
don't wanna-
it.
I-
No, but as long as you don't touch it, can you touch? Are you allowed to touch the pork?
No, if it would be if you're once you're focused on the fact that you might come to eat it, doesn't make a difference if you actually physically touch it. There is a concept if it's very remote from you. For example, if you do business with non-kosher products, there is authorities that will allow it if it's something which is a very you're not connected to the actual product
Okay.
as well, meaning to the actual live the actual product. So there is no fear. But that's I'm saying each one if one wants to get into the selling the sausage business, speak to your local rabbi for
Advice.
exactly how to do it. But basically, that was just in perspective. So this Rabbi Weinberg went around from place. He said, "What do you do? I'm like a traveling sofer. Jews are like a Sefer Torah. Over time, sometimes their letters get cracked. So I go around and help inspire them and correct their letters." So when he came back to New York and he told this to the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, he told them about this interaction. So the Lubavitch Rebbe told him, "You're incorrect." It was a nice point, but it was incorrect. Because the connection to the Jews to the Sefer Torah the connection of the Jews to Judaism is not like a Sefer Torah, which you have ink on a parchment, which is two separate things, but rather it's engraved within them. It's a part of them. Sometimes when you engrave something, it gets a bit dirty. So you have to clean it out. You got to clean it. That's what you got to do. You got to clean it. But it's part of them. It's part of them. So the idea, what we're saying is, Torah. This is the statute that all the mitzvahs of the Torah, the entire Torah, comes in a way of chukah, is a way of engraved. That every single part it comes to is essential to our identity. And hence, when we understand the essential of identity, who we are, what's the essence of who we are, and that's what we started off saying. Who are we? What is the essence of who we are? Is it about our physical lives, or is it about our neshama, our souls? That's the essence of who we are. And we have to, a person recognizes that the essence of who they are is their neshama, is their souls, is their spiritual life. Therefore, what will you invest and be focused on? What will you work to grow, to make sure it's better? Now, and I want to, with that in mind, we're going to learn something. A talk the Lubavitch Rebbe spoke about the concept, explaining the idea about Yaakov Avinu, Jacob. The Talmud says, and everyone has their source sheets.
Yeah.
I can share it. Where are those?
We can share.
Uh,
Do you know how we can share?
Thank you. Okay. The Talmud explains about Yaakov Avinu. This is about Jacob, that So let's read it. Let's go through it and we'll read it. Maybe Kermit, you'll read it in Hebrew. The source one.
אמר רבי יוחנן.
Omer Rabbi Yochanan.
כן, אמר רבי יוחנן, יעקב אבינו לא מת, אמר לו רב נחמן בתמיהה, וכי לחינם ספדו הספדנים, וחנתו החונטים, וקברו הקוברים, אמר לו, מה זרעו בחיים, אף הוא בחיים.
Oh. So, Chaim, maybe you'll read in English. What does it mean?
Rabbi Yochanan said, our forefather Jacob did not die. Rabbi Nachman, was it for naught that the eulogizers eulogized him and the embalmers embalmed him and the buriers buried him? Rabbi Yitzchak replied, just as his progeny is alive, so too he is still alive.
So which means, so he said was Yaakov, our forefather, our forefather Yaakov, it said, where it says, it says, Lomes, he didn't die. So Rechanan is asked, Nachman asks him, what do you mean? They buried him, they embalmed him, they did the whole after death process. How can you refer to him and say that Yaakov Avinu lo meis? Yaakov Avinu didn't die. They went through the drill.
No, sure, it's the old story. The body doesn't die, but the wisdom and the spirit carries on forever.
Yeah.
But what does he say?
Influences.
So it's interesting. That's not what he says. He doesn't say the neshama stays forever. What does the Gemara answer? Ma zari b'chaim, afhu b'chaim. When their children, descendants are alive, he is still alive.
Yeah.
Just like the fact that his descendants are alive, that means that he is still alive as well. Now, what does that mean? Meaning, what does that mean? What does that mean? If everyone turns over to the next page. Declan, you want to maybe just read that too, and then Kathy, you'll read in English? Hebrew and English? Yeah?
והביאור בזה, כאשר יהודי מתעסק עם העולם, שיש בו דברים הקשורים עם גשמיות,
Page number 2, on page number 2.
למטה מזה, עם חומריות, הנה כאשר מתבונן בשכלו, אזי יודע ומבין, ויכול גם להרגיש שזהו עניין שאין לו קיום נצחי. אפילו מי שמאיזו סיבה שתהיה, רוצה וחפץ ביותר בדבר גשמי, על אחת כמה וכמה בדבר חומרי, הנה כאשר חושב ומתבונן, אפילו בשעת התאווה, יודע הוא שאין זה דבר שישאר עמו באופן נצחי, אלא זהו עניין החולף ועובר, ויבוא זמן שגם הוא בעצמו כבר לא יתענג ממנו. זו רק שאלה של זמן, יום, חודש, שנה, 10 שנים או יותר, אבל בוודאי בפשיטות אצלו שכל עניין גשמי אינו עניין נצחי. וזהו כללות החילוק בין ענייני טוב וקדושה לעניינים ההפכיים ואפילו לעניינים סתמיים, שבנוגע למציאות העולם, יודעים הכל שזהו דבר שיש לו הגבלה בזמן. אפילו עניין בעולם שהוא קשור אליו וחפץ בו ביותר, ועד שהוא מוכן להתייגע ולמסור עבורו כל אשר לו, הנה הוא, בעל התאווה, בעצמו יודע שזהו עניין הקשור ומוגבל בזמן. וכאשר מתבונן בכך שזהו דבר מוגבל בזמן, הרי אפילו בשעה שישנו עדיין במציאות, אין זה אמיתית עניין החיים, כיוון שהחיות שלו, אפילו בהיותו חי, מוגבלת למשך זמן מצומצם, ובזה מתבטאת עבודתו של יהודי, לפעול בעולם של נצחיות.
Okay. Kathy, you want to just read it in English?
As we engage with the physical and material world, when we contemplate the matter we understand and even feel that these are matters that have no eternal continuity. Even when we are seized by desire for a particular material matter, when we stop to think, we know that this is not something that will stay with us forever. This is a passing, temporary matter, and there will come a time when we won't even enjoy it at all ourselves. It's just a matter of time, a day, month, year, decade or longer. But we understand clearly that everything material is not eternal. This is the basic difference between matters of holiness and everything else, from unholy to neutral. We all know that anything physical is temporary, even those worldly matters that we feel a deep desire for and are willing to toil and sacrifice everything we have for them. we know ourselves that this is something temporary. When we contemplate this fact, we realize that even while these physical matters exist, they aren't truly alive in the fullest sense because their existence is temporary, even while they're alive. Our role as Jews is to introduce eternity into this world.
Okay. You wanna read this?
Yes. על עברית, לשון הקודש.
לשון הקודש, לשון הקודש.
כאשר יהודי לוקח את ענייני העולם ומקשר אותם עם הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא למעלה מזמן ומקום, שהרי הקדוש ברוך הוא אינו מוגבל כלל, גם בו בהגבלת הזמן, אזי נמשך בעולם עניין של נצחיות, למעלה מהזמן, ועל ידי זה נעשה דבר חי באמת שאינו חולף. ולדוגמה, כאשר יהודי לוקח מרכושו ונותן לצדקה, ועושה זאת לא בשביל למצוא חן בעיני פלוני שגם אז קיים מצווה, אלא אין זה כפי שמצווה צריכה להיות, אלא בגלל ציווי הקדוש ברוך הוא, שאז עושה מהכסף כלי ודרך להתגלות רצונו של הקדוש ברוך הוא בעולם, באמצעות דבר שבעולם, אזי מקשר דבר הזה עם הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נצחי. ועל ידי זה נעשה גם דבר הזה שמצד עצמו הוא מדוד ומוגבל דבר נצחי. And when it does it, I mean not לשם מצווה.
Wait, let's go through that in a second. Yes.
ובזה מתבטאת עבודתו של יהודי לפעול בדברים החולפים ועוברים, דברים המוגבלים בזמן, שלקח הנה גם בזמן היותם אינם אמיתית המציאות, לעשות מהם דבר נצחי חיים אמיתיים. ונמצא שעבודתו של יהודי מתבטאת בתחיית המתים, לפעול על דברים שאפילו בחייהם קרויים מתים, ולעשות מהם דברים שאפילו במיתתם קרויים חיים.
Okay. So which means is the following. We said before that when a person recognizes that the true thing, the essence of true everything is really its soul, the spiritual aspect of it. When we begin to think, that causes a person to think that the physical things in the world are something which are not something which are going to last. Any enjoyment which we have, why do people constantly run after every sort of instant gratification? Whether it's easy, you eat 10 potatoes, you ate 10 of the Doritos, you're eating it, okay, it tastes very good, right? But you need another one. Why? Why doesn't the taste, the last one last? If it's something really true, if it's something that has an essence, why doesn't it continue? It should last me. Eat one Dorito. Think about it. You'd imagine eating one Dorito and it'll last you a lifetime, right? Right? Think about that, dude. That would be good. It would definitely make life easy. You don't have to lose all that weight.
Yeah.
So, right? So why doesn't it? Because whatever you have, it's only limited to a very, very limited, shorter period of time. So which means even when it exists, it really is not really existing. It's limited. It's as if it's as if it's really on its way out. So it's dying. It's in the process of dying. It's only a matter of time. As opposed to spiritual existence exists forever. Spiritual existence is something that exists for eternity. Now, so therefore, what would be a person's focus? What's the idea of a person's focus when you have that? A person has the ability to, God gives us a special power to be able to connect something which in essence is finite, is going to be on its way out, the way to be destroyed. And by doing a mitzvah with it, by doing something good and positive and something holy with it, you make that now eternal. You make that now special and eternal, that this becomes now holy. So the corn chip is not a Dorito, is not anymore just a Dorito, but rather the Dorito becomes eternal if it becomes part of a purpose for a mitzvah. If you don't do it for the purpose of the mitzvah, then it stays a Dorito. And it goes through your digestive system, and in an hour and a half later, it leaves your body, right? That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
That's the essence of what it stays. So it stays finite. Our purpose, our mission is how do we create something which is infinite, make something. That is when we focus on making everything we have to make it spiritual, taking all our physical things and bringing it for a higher purpose. That's a power we have to make things, to immortalize everything in a certain sense. And when we do that, it really becomes ours. It really becomes ours. They say the story of the Kaiser Wilhelm who was approached, I think it was Mayor Ansel Rothschild, and he's told him, I want you to make a accounting of everything you have. He says, really? Yes. You can make an accounting of everything you have. He says, sure. Makes a little bit, a while later, he brings in a bunch of sheets, and he said, this is everything I have. So the Kaiser takes a look at it, looks through the documents, and says, you're lying to me. You're not telling me the truth. I don't see the properties which I know you have over there in this location. It's not on that. And there's other things that I know that you have which are not on that as well. Are you taking me for a fool? I asked you to show me everything you have. So Mayor Ansel looks at him and says, Your Majesty, you are telling me about things, physical things, which I could have today and I don't have tomorrow. Today I have them. Something could happen tomorrow and I'll lose all of that. The one thing that will always be mine and can never be taken from me is with the charity I've given. That's something that no matter what happens in my life, they are now have been immortal. They're now immortal. They're always, it's going to last forever. They're always going to belong to me. No one can ever take away that mitzvah that I did, the charity that I gave.
תרומה, צדקה.
Tzedakah.
Wow.
And therefore you ask me what belongs to me?
The charity.
I made an accounting of all the charity I gave until now, and that's what you ask what belongs to me. So therefore, when we want to know what, in essence, is what becomes, in a way, we're connected with it, immortal, what is becomes eternal, what is always with us, what is lasts forever, that's when the physical things that we made, spiritual.
Only תרומה or any mitzvah that you do?
Every mitzvah
Any
that you
mitzvah,
do.
not just the donation of
But here, the donation of money, you created it. That money now is eternal.
Okay.
Right? If you take, when you do that, that becomes now eternal. If you take something in your life, you take the money and you buy a mezuzah, now you made that money was dedicated, become part of a mitzvah that's lasts forever.
Okay, but is it the zchut? Because when you do mitzvah, you have zchut, right? It's like you made good deed. Because it's zchut, I mean, like kind of let's simple word reward for it. That's what he's looking. He last for, but internally it's his. So
We're saying there's the reward you get for it, but that's not what we're referring to now.
Okay, okay.
We're not referring to that now.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
We're referring to that is something. The act is an everlasting act.
Yeah, I understand.
That's something that will never go away.
But the
act is everlasting.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
And it's not a given that a person will recognize this focus. Recognize that importance of focusing on that. Mary Ansel understood it. But not everyone understands this. It takes time. Focus on what's the real part of the world. How do we make things eternal? What is the reality of what we have to be focused on? There was a story that not so long ago, I think in the 1990s, of a story was called The Mensch of Maiden Hills. I think it was a city, there was a small town called Maiden Hills. Over there was a Jew who inherited a garment factory that he got ready from his grandfather. This was a family factory. They produced garments, and he was I think he was celebrating some sort of his birthday, 70s. He was quite in he was later on in life, and he all of a sudden got the news that his whole factory with the hundreds of workers that worked there had burned down to the ground. Thank God, all the workers got out safely, but the actual factory was gone. At that point, everyone expected that this person he's already older, to restart. No one expected him to all of a sudden restart. They knew he would be getting hundreds of millions of dollars in insurance. Everyone expected him take his insurance, close his shop. Maybe if he wanted to get back into business, open up a factory in China, which is a lot cheaper labor. But right afterwards, he made a press conference, and he announced that I am going to reopen my factory here. And not only am I going to open a factory here, until the factory is rebuilt, I'm going to be paying all my workers their salaries. I remember watching a video. It took over the town like crazy when he did that. The entire livelihood was based on him, and he was willing to reinvest in this town. He didn't need to. He wasn't expected to, but he was called the Mensch of Maiden Hills. His act became known worldwide. He was, I think, by the State of the Union, the president then, Bill Clinton, brought him along to show how honest and and good business leaders of what they could be. And he said, he was interviewed later, and he asked about, why did you do it? Meaning, what inspired you? He said, my father always told me, quoted the Mishnah and says, "B'mokim she'ein ish, yishtadel liot ish." When there's no one else to show moral clarity and authority on what to do it, you show it. You be that person. Then I was happy to make the Kiddush Hashem and show what we've done. And even though later on he lost all, he got bankrupt. He went bankrupt later on. Says he never regretted the fact that he reinvested and rebuilt his factory. He blamed himself why he didn't make the proper decisions in his future business and why he became bankrupt afterwards. But he was a person who recognized that money is something something material that lasts a long period of time. But akol cholef, but the deed that he does, the mitzvah that he does, something that lasts forever. And now we'll understand a little bit more of why Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, lo met. Jacob didn't die. Why didn't Jacob die? Because the idea by each of us, we have the essence is our essence is our souls, our neshamot. Our bodies are like a piece of clothing, right? Our clothing. Now, generally, you don't make some decisions, on average, you don't make decisions to hurt yourself for your clothing. But sometimes people do, right? People will hurt themselves because they want to dress up in a certain clothing. They damage themselves, right?
To fit into something.
To fit into something. You put on shoes, you're killing your feet, you're doing damage, but you don't want to put on the other pair of shoes which don't look as nice. Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we place a value on the clothing over the body, in essence, over the essence. And normal people throughout, sometimes though the essence is our soul, the body is, in a way, just the clothing. Sometimes we take care more of our clothing, the body, to the detriment of our soul. Which means we're willing to succumb to certain temptations that the body wants us to do, because, even though that's detrimental to our soul, but we fit ourselves into that tight shoe, even though it hurts our foot for the next month. A tzaddik is not like that. A tzaddik, their entire life is about their neshama. Their entire life is the soul. That's the essence of who they are, the essence of who they're being.
וכובשים את היצר also.
Kofshim, 100%. They overcome their desires. They've overcome it. And what happens is, when they've done that, their body always remains just a piece of clothing or cloth that they easily take off. You know what happens when they, after 120 years? After 120 years, the clothing is just putting on, you're taking off a piece of cotton, and then now they're elevating themselves and putting on a more of a golden, more luxurious clothing when they go up above. Their essence of who they were with the soul, with the spirituality. It wasn't the body. So now they're just trading in the cloth. They're trading in I'm just going to term it in American clothing. I really have no idea. But it's like, it would be, in my perspective, it would say, it's saying, you're trading in Old Navy for Armani, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're trading in for. Those are the difference you're trading in.
But Rabbi, not exactly that. Is it said anywhere in the Sifrei HaKodesh, it's 120 years? Because I know in Tehillim there's something, 70 שנה ואם בגבורות 80 שנה. As this is what is the life expectancy by, because you mentioned 120, you just
Up to 120 years.
It's up because
Up
there's
to
mizmor b'Tehillim that I will say.
That's why we wish people to
משה
100.
רבנו.
Okay.
I'm saying that's why we.
120 שנה.
Okay. Because
But that's not saying that's your life expectancy
לא
automatically.
say, generally speaking, because they say 70 שנה ואם בגבורות 80 שנה.
נכון.
So it's-
What we're trying to say is, we say Moshe Rabbeinu was 120 years.
Yeah.
We're trying to is, you should merit to live
Yeah.
to 120 years. Biz 120 ad 120 שנה. מה זאת אומרת? What are you trying to say? You should live to, you should merit 120 years in good health.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the blessing you're giving. But we're saying it. But what we're saying in Tehillim is that yes, that the generally 70 years, big Buddhas with the strength is 80 years.
Okay,
Right? That's the
way past with these modern days. But I'm
today,
talking
and that has expanded.
we're taking
Baruch
that.
Hashem.
Then
Baruch Hashem.
that, if you think about it, then 80 years is like 100 to 120 today. Because
Well, we
then-
actually mean
Okay.
120
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
Not,
yeah,
but 80
I
years
know,
would
I
be a
know.
lot. But 80 years, 100%.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. I understand.
So that's the idea. What we're saying, when Yaakov Avinu is lomes, Yaakov Avinu didn't die. You only die when your life is about death.
And also, sorry, Robert.
If your life is about physicality,
Yeah.
which is in essence something that is only temporary, if your life is all about the chocolate craisins and the Doritos, which are also in essence in a way that they're dead in a way, because it's very limited,
Yes.
then if that's what your life is about, there's an end period to you.
Also, קשור לדברי הבל? Or no,
That's also different. Havel avalim, meaning to say is you're
Not
speaking about. There's no essence, there's no purpose to what you're saying.
It's not the real thing. It's one of the things that going, they're not really valued.
There's no substance
Yes.
to what you're saying. So if your life is about that, then once your soul is separated from the body, your life was about your body, the body dissipates, and That's it. Person has passed away. But if your body is only just a clothing for you, your life was about you. Who is you? Who is you? Who you? Your neshama, your soul. That's who you are. Then, though the body is going to be embalmed, though the body is going to be taken, buried, and everything, but nevertheless, the person didn't pass away.
Yeah.
The person still exists. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Because also
How do you know that person is still alive? Is mazar b'chaim. If that person, their children, their identity, what they believed in continues, goes on,
the legacy.
that's the essence of who they are, their Torah and mitzvahs, everything. Then, that just continues forever. They never die. Because who is they? Their Torah and mitzvahs. Not what they ate breakfast in the morning.
Yes. אלה דברים מתכלים, they don't,
And therefore, that's what it means, Yaakov Avinu Lomes. That they're everlasting. Yes, Kat?
If we're talking about actual progeny, about actual children, is it that a friend of mine said, well, when people don't always have children of their own, but the people they influence are their spiritual children, their students there.
Correct. 100%. Yes, that also goes for spiritual children.
You know, it's amazing how it does. I have pieces of the puzzle, and now like it's complete each other. Like also, as the גיבור על כובש את יצרו, יצרים, גיבור, בגבורות, 80 שנה, you live in גבורה, you live longer, you do the mitzvot, you can conquer, you
Saying that shows ultimate strength.
Yeah, no, when you see the right thing, so to speak, when you concentrate, you know the mitzvot is the most important, and you try to not to fall into temptation or like fitting into the shoe which is not really suitable for. Do basically the right things. You live longer, you live the legacy, but you have better things to stay to leave something behind you, because your body is just basar vadam. It will go, but what left behind you, what the legacy you leave behind you, the mitzvot, your children, what you gave them, the way you educated, how you brought them up, what do you, to believe, like do the mitzvot, Torah, all those things. That's something
that's when you work with. If that's important, 100%. That's when we're working on that. That is the essence of who we are, and that's part of what we need to. That's part of what we need to do. Is today is Gimel Tammuz. Yeah. The day you might say is the Rebbe is passing, but we say the tzaddik doesn't pass on.
Yeah, no, he definitely.
The Rebbe is elevated and still alive and growing and getting stronger every year, more alive every year.
Look what he left behind. It's amazing.
Not just left behind, he's living now.
No, not behind. I mean, he's the body, but absolutely, we live it every day.
That's it. Living now, growing now.
Sorry, Rabbi, I have to leave.
All the best.
Thank you so much. It was
Pleasure.
really interesting.
Yes.
I asked a question about a Hilula, a yard site. So, because also we have it in Morocco that we have the Hilula, we have all the Hilulot of the Rabbanim, and we also say, and we brachot, we eat foods to say that each bracha we say we elevate this. In what way? Why and how is a person's neshama elevated today? Is it in each year they go higher?
Right.
Say,
Okay, that's a good question. Give me 1 second. I just want to set this up so I'll be able to do it right when I do that. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. So you're saying is how do, by the fact that we're eating and doing brachot for a person, how does that elevate that person? Or in essence, why is that person elevated on this day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kaddish through brachos.
So what does Hilula mean?
Hallel, to pray. No. To
Like a wedding.
glorify. Hallel.
Hilula is in a way of a celebration, a wedding. This is the time that the person's, in essence, what we're saying, the person's everything the person accomplished throughout the times, on today's day and age, gets stronger and gets elevated. Because this is the day when everything you accomplish is now the time when we're getting closer to Hashem. Just like the first time the person goes up, is now you're getting closer. You're closer to a greater power, to Hashem. So to every year, the anniversary of that, we keep on going higher and higher with that. And therefore, in addition to when we do a mitzvah, as with everyone we do a mitzvah for, that brings strength to that person, to that neshama, as well as also for that person as well, and actually, if you look further, this will do your homework. You'll do at the end. Maybe we'll farbring and we can discuss this afterwards. The next part of the sheets you have discusses quotes from the Tanya, which discusses that a tzaddik, a righteous person, is connected to their disciples more when they're in a way more after 120 years than during the time that they're in a way alive, because after 120 years they're not limited by the body. They only have soul.
So I think my question's kind of related to what you're saying. I don't understand. We go to the Ohel and we say prayer, or we write whatever we want to the Rebbe, don't we? I don't understand, in the sense that he's dead. I know the soul lives on, but why does it work through the Rebbe, and why don't we go directly to Hashem? Okay,
this is a very, very good question. So you're asking is not just when you're asking for a blessing. First of all, you're not asking the Rebbe to do something. You're asking the Rebbe to give a blessing for something, right? That to give a blessing or pray on your behalf for that. That's both when they're quote unquote alive, when physically we saw him, or when we don't see him. It's both the same ideas. Now your question is, in essence, is why do we do that to begin with? Why not go directly to Hashem? Why do we need a Rebbe, right? Why do we need a Rebbe? That's a very good question. And we could do another class which we have just about that, but just to discuss that for now. We say all the Jewish people is like one big soul. It's one big soul into many different bodies. Every single one of us have our neshama part of the one soul. That's why we're all connected. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all one. Now, in a body, you have the head, and you have different other aspects of the body, right? The head is the epicenter. It's where, in essence, everything is going on. The rest of the bodies are connected. In order for it to be healthy, need to be connected to the head. And once it's connected to the head, then it's able to be healthy in its a proper way. A leader, the Nasi, the leader, and the Rebbe is like the head. We are all, in essence, getting connected connected through that leader, and through that also connected to Hashem. He brings out the essence of Hashem that we have within us. So through the fact that we have that our neshama is connected to our head, we are in a healthier state, and we are also able to properly connect to Hashem in the best possible way.
Sorry, I don't want to prolong this, but the reason I asked the question is because I did go to Ohel, and I remember writing and thinking, as I was saying, Hashem, God, I'm doing this, but I don't know whether I'm doing the right thing here because I'm at the cemetery, in essence.
Right.
And I think that, I can't remember the exact number, I think it was a 5 or 6, and I was just writing just off the top of my head. And before I left New York, there were at least 4 I had the answers to. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And it worked. And I don't understand.
So the answer is it's not just like a gimmick that works, because the Rebbe, you're saying the Rebbe is helping you. The Rebbe is pushing. So it's all dependent if you're if are you speaking to a person or not. You wouldn't ask the question if you were just speaking to a person, but this is what our class is discussed.
Okay.
Take away the physical aspect and recognize that you're actually speaking to a person.
Okay.
Does that change that?
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. And the class in essence over. I wanna take the time that we can maybe want to say a little bit of time, however long people want to stay. We could bring a little bit. We could discuss a little bit about the Rebbe, about the love that he has. There's a beautiful clip a beautiful thing. It's about 12 minutes. A beautiful short video that goes through 4 different people, how they were affected by the Rebbe in a powerful way. And I wanted to share that with everyone. So, yeah.